Not every story is meant to be told. Some are meant to be felt. The pyramids hold such a story, and tonight it becomes yours. The desert stretches endlessly, silent except for the sigh of the wind brushing across the dunes. The horizon shimmers in the dying light of the sun, and you, the weary traveler, take a slow breath as the world before you shifts. For days, the Nile has been your companion, a silver serpent winding through the sands, reflecting sky and moon, life and memory. But now, at last, you see them, the pyramids. They rise from the horizon like titans of stone. At first, they appear as shadows, triangular silhouettes etched against the dusk. But as the last rays of the sun touch them, they awaken, their surfaces glowing golden, as if the gods themselves brushed them with fire. Your steps slow, the world around you fades. The desert is vast, but here, before these ancient giants, you feel both impossibly small and strangely eternal. Beside you walks Nadim, an old man. His robe is light and weathered, his sandals worn from decades of guiding travelers across these sacred lands. His beard is streaked with silver, and his voice, when he finally speaks, carries both wisdom and comfort. "Do you see them?" he whispers, his hand gesturing toward the Great Pyramid of Khufu. "Stones stacked against time, pharaohs built not for death, but for eternity. Tonight you will hear their secrets, but you must walk slowly. You must listen carefully. These pyramids speak only to the patient." You nod, though words feel heavy on your tongue. The sand crunches under your sandals. The air is cooler now. Shadows stretch long across the desert floor, and the stars begin to stir awake above you. As you approach, the true scale of the pyramid overwhelms you. Each stone block is taller than a man, heavier than 100 oxen, yet fitted with such precision that not even a knife blade could slip between them. You press your hand against the stone. It is cool, ancient, silent, a silence that hums with memory. Nadim watches you. "Every block," he says softly, "was dragged from the quarries by hands like yours. Some bled into the sand, some sang songs to ease the burden, some whispered prayers to Ra, the sun god, with each step. They built for their pharaoh, but also for themselves. For to touch eternity, even once, is to never be forgotten." His words sink into you like the desert night, slow, steady, eternal. You follow Nadim toward the pyramid's base, where the entrance yawns like the mouth of the earth. Torches flicker along the pathway. The flamelight dances on the stone walls, painting them in shades of gold and shadow. Stepping inside, the world changes. The air is cooler, denser. The sounds of the desert, the wind, the shifting sand, the distant cry of a night bird fade away, leaving only the echo of your own breath. The corridor is narrow, the ceiling low. Hieroglyphs line the walls, etched into stone with care, each symbol a story, each curve a prayer. They seem alive in the firelight, as though the figures might step out from the walls at any moment. Nadim lifts his torch. His voice lowers, becoming part of the stillness. These are not just words. They are spells, charms to guide the soul of the pharaoh beyond death. But they are also stories, stories of floods, of kings, of gods who walked the earth. Listen closely and you will hear the echo of the Nile itself. The two of you walk slowly, deeper into the pyramid. Each step seems longer than the last. Each breath feels heavier, as though the weight of stone presses not just above your head, but upon your very spirit. Yet instead of fear, you feel calm. The pyramid holds you like a cradle, not a tomb. Nadim sits on the cool stone floor and gestures for you to join him. The pyramids were not built in haste, he whispers. They rose over decades, sometimes lifetimes. Fathers began what sons would finish. Villages emptied so that stones might move. But think, traveler, why? Why would men spend their lives in toil for another's tomb? His eyes gleam in the firelight. Because they believed it was not only a tomb, it was a ladder to the heavens, a bridge between the living and the gods, each stone a prayer, each chamber a map of the stars. Do you see, they were building not only for Pharaoh, but for all of us, for the memory of humankind. His words linger, and for a long time, the two of you sit in silence, listening to the flicker of the flame, the soft sigh of air in the stone chamber, the echo of history that feels very much alive. Gradually, Nadim's voice grows softer, his words slow, as if they too are sinking into the stillness. The desert outside will sleep now, he murmurs, and so will you. For the secrets of the pyramids are not shouted, they are whispered. They come only to those who are patient enough to dream them. The torch burns low, shadows deepen, your eyes grow heavy. Your breath matches the rhythm of the silence. The pyramid seems to breathe with you. Stone and soul in perfect harmony. And as you drift, you realize this is not the end of the journey. It is only the beginning. The desert at dawn was a painting in motion. A pale lavender sky stretched endlessly, streaked with thin ribbons of gold that trembled on the horizon. The first touch of light brushed against the dunes, and they glowed as though fire slept beneath their skin. Kareem's camel shifted beneath him, swaying with a rhythm as old as the desert itself. Each step pressed softly into the sand, leaving behind trails that the wind would soon erase, as it had erased countless footsteps before his. In this silence, broken only by the crunch of hooves and the whisper of wind, the world seemed timeless, unhurried. And then, ahead, something vast began to stir out of the morning haze. At first it was no more than a shadow, a darker line against the horizon. But as the sun rose, the haze thinned, and stone caught the light. What Kareem saw was not simply a structure. It was a presence. He drew in a slow breath, his chest tightening as if the desert itself pressed against him. The stories had not lied, yet they had not told the whole truth either. No story could. The pyramid rose, not like a building, but like a mountain sculpted by gods. Its edges cut against the sky with a sharpness that defied the centuries. Even in its age, it looked eternal, as though it had always been there. Before kings, before kingdoms, before even the Nile first carved its path through the sands. The camel slowed of its own accord, bowing its head slightly, as if it too recognized the weight of this sight. Kareem dismounted, his sandals sinking into the cooling sand. He felt small, a grain before an ocean, a breath before eternity. All around, life moved with quiet reverence. A caravan approached from the south, its donkeys laden with amphorae of olive oil and jars of honey sealed with wax. The traders spoke in hushed tones, their voices drifting like the faint rustle of papyrus leaves. Some bowed their heads toward the pyramid, lips moving in silent prayers. He closed his eyes and imagined. He imagined the day the first stone was laid, when thousands of workers lined the desert floor, ropes straining, copper tools flashing in the sun. He imagined the chants they sang to keep rhythm, the steady drumbeat of wooden mallets against stone. He imagined sweat dripping into sand, voices raised not in despair but in purpose, because to build this was to touch eternity. And he imagined the architects, men who studied the stars, charting their paths across the night sky, aligning the pyramid with constellations so precise that even now, thousands of years later, it remained true. Somewhere, deep within those chambers, rested the king, Khufu, a ruler who had demanded eternity and been given it in stone. But was it truly just a tomb? Or was it something more? A map, a key, a message from the ancients?
The question stirred like dust in Kareem's mind, yet the desert offered no answers, only silence. The wind shifted, sand brushed lightly against his face. The sun climbed higher and the pyramid glowed in gold, then in white, then in a shimmer so bright he had to look away. Nearby, soldiers of the garrison prepared their morning camp. Their armor glinted and their shields leaned against spears planted firmly in the sand. But even they, hardened men of discipline, seemed quieter here. Their laughter was softer, their movements slower. One sat by the fire, sharpening a sword with long, careful strokes. Another broke bread, passing it between comrades. A third hummed a low tune, a melody carried from a far-off village, now mingling with the desert wind. Kareem lingered in this moment. He did not rush forward, nor did he retreat. He simply stood, breathing in the air, letting the weight of history rest gently upon him. The pyramid was more than stone, more than a tomb. It was a living memory. And as he gazed upon it, the thought came to him, a quiet, unsettling thought. Perhaps the builders had not only raised a monument to a king, perhaps they had raised a mirror for all who came after. A reminder that men are fleeting, but dreams carved in stone may outlive the sand itself. The desert hushed again. The caravan moved on. The traders faded into the distance. The soldiers' voices softened to embers. Kareem closed his eyes. He let the silence settle into him, deeper than breath, deeper than thought. He felt the weight of centuries press gently against his shoulders. When he opened them again, the pyramid was still there, silent, unyielding, eternal. He stepped forward, one step, then another, toward the base, toward the shadow, toward whatever secrets waited inside. The air shifted as Kareem stepped into the shadow of the pyramid. Outside, the desert had blazed with sun,
and the soft, endless rhythm of sand and sky. But here at the base of the Great Pyramid, the light dimmed and the heat softened. The stone seemed to drink in the sunlight, keeping its secrets hidden within. At the narrow entrance, two guards in linen kilts stood silently, spears in hand. Their eyes followed Kareem, not with suspicion, but with a solemn weight, as though they too felt the sacredness of this threshold. Behind them, a priest traced symbols in the air, murmuring prayers to keep away restless spirits. Kareem pressed his palm once more against the limestone. It was cool now, colder than the desert morning should allow. He inhaled deeply, steadying himself. And then, guided by a single flickering torch, he stepped forward. The passage swallowed him whole. It was narrow, barely wide enough for two men to walk side by side, and sloped downward at a gentle but steady angle. His sandals brushed against smooth stone, worn by centuries of feet. The air here was different, heavy. It clung to his lungs, damp and ancient, as though it had not been stirred for 1,000 years. Every sound changed. The camel bells, the soldiers' laughter, the whisper of desert winds, all faded, replaced by the hollow echo of his own steps. Even his breath seemed louder, bouncing off the stone walls before sinking into silence. The torchlight flickered against the ceiling, illuminating faint marks carved into the walls. Hieroglyphs, lines of birds and eyes, serpents and suns. Some were clear, etched deeply into stone. Others had faded, almost erased by time. He reached out and traced them with his fingertips, feeling grooves that told stories no voice could speak anymore. A falcon with wings spread wide. A scarab pushing the sun across the horizon. A line of stars arranged with precision. They were not random. They were a map, a message, perhaps even a warning. The corridor sloped lower, and he had to bend his head. The air cooled further, brushing his skin like the touch of unseen hands. Every few steps, he felt a subtle vibration. Not sound, not movement, but a presence. The pyramid seemed to hum around him, as though the stone itself was alive with memory. He thought of the men who had walked here before, priests carrying the body of Khufu, chanting sacred words, builders inspecting the final stones, generals and scholars from lands beyond Egypt entering with wonder in their eyes. Each had walked into shadow as he did now, and like him, each had wondered what lay at the heart. The corridor forked. To the left, the passage dipped steeply downward into darker depths. To the right, a narrow shaft climbed upward toward a faint glimmer of light. Kareem paused, his torch swaying. Which way had the ancients intended? Which way led to truth? From somewhere deeper within, a low sound drifted. Not wind, not echo. Something steadier. A thrum, as though stone carried the heartbeat of the earth itself. He chose downward. The slope steepened, and the ceiling lowered until he had to crouch, his torch scraping the roof. Sweat formed on his brow despite the coolness. His heart pounded louder with each step. The flame danced wildly, shadows racing across the walls like spirits. And then the tunnel opened. He stepped into a chamber, It was not vast, not like the halls of temples. It was small, square, its walls lined with granite so smooth they reflected the torchlight like polished bronze. In the center rose a sarcophagus, dark, massive, empty. Its lid stood to the side, cracked, as though pried open long ago. Kareem approached, his footsteps echoing against the stone. He placed a hand on the edge, cold, silent, heavy with absence. Was this Khufu's resting place, or had it always been empty, a decoy for robbers? On the walls, more carvings revealed themselves. Stars arranged in constellations, a ship riding waves of stone, and a line of figures with arms raised toward a pyramid of light. The air grew stiller, softer. Kareem sat on the stone floor, lowering his torch until the chamber glowed only faintly. His breath slowed, his body softened. He listened, not to his own heartbeat, but to the silence within silence. The pyramid spoke, though not in words. It spoke in weight, in stillness, in the way shadows stretched across granite. It spoke in the faint hum that vibrated beneath the surface of stone, like the echo of forgotten chants. And slowly, gently, Kareem felt his thoughts quiet. The desert, the caravans, the soldiers, all drifted away. Only the pyramid remained. And as his eyes grew heavy, he realized this was its secret. Not gold, not treasure, not even eternal life. The pyramid was a vessel for silence, a place where the soul could step beyond time. And in that silence, he drifted, not into fear, but into peace. Chamber's silence held Kareem like a cloak. For a long while he sat still, his torch resting in the dust, flame burning low. The pyramid's heartbeat pulsed faintly beneath the stone, not in rhythm with his own, but older, deeper, like the slow tide of the earth itself. And then, faintly, he noticed it. A whisper of air, a thread of wind, cool against his cheek. He turned. In the far corner of the granite chamber, where shadow pressed deepest, there was an opening no wider than his shoulders. A shaft, smooth, angled, almost hidden from the torchlight. The priest's words echoed in his mind. The pyramid is not only stone, it is a stairway. Gathering his courage, he lifted the torch and stepped into the narrow passage. The walls closed in around him. His shoulders brushed both sides. The ceiling pressed low above his head. He had to stoop, inching forward one slow step at a time. The torch hissed in the stale air, casting long, trembling shadows. Yet that faint breath of wind guided him, pulling him forward. The air here was different, fresher, charged. It carried a scent, faint, metallic, almost like stars themselves had burned against stone. Minutes stretched into eternity. His steps became slower, softer, until suddenly the passage opened. Before him rose a chamber unlike any he had seen. It was long, steep, and vast. The ceiling soared high above in steps of stone, like a staircase frozen in mid-ascent. This was no simple corridor. This was the Grand Gallery, a passage built to draw the eyes upward, toward infinity.
His torchlight flickered, barely reaching the roof. The walls glimmered as though polished by unseen hands. The silence here was greater than in the chamber before. Not empty, but full, heavy with intent. Kareem felt small, as though he stood within the ribs of some great creature, the heart of which beat far above. He stepped slowly, each footfall echoing, rising through the passage like the beat of a drum. And then he saw them. Tiny openings in the walls, narrow shafts angled precisely upward, pointing not at random, but toward the heavens. One pointed toward the constellation of Orion, the hunter of Sirius, the god of rebirth. Another toward Sirius, the brightest star, the guiding flame of Isis. Others stretched toward constellations known only to the priests of old. This was no tomb. It was an observatory of eternity, a map of the stars carved into stone. Kareem tilted his head back. He imagined the night sky pouring through those shafts, beams of starlight touching the very heart of the pyramid. He imagined priests kneeling here, chanting as the heavens aligned above them, turning stone into a mirror of the cosmos. His breath slowed. His eyelids grew heavy. He pressed onward, deeper into the grand gallery, until he reached a final doorway. Narrow, low, almost humble compared to the vastness before it. He ducked inside. This chamber was smaller, the queen's chamber, though no queen had ever rested here. Its air was cooler, calmer, filled with the same faint breath of starlight. Along its walls, faint carvings traced symbols of the lotus, the falcon, and the rising sun. At the center stood nothing but emptiness. No sarcophagus, no treasure, only stillness. Yet Kareem felt watched, not by men, not by soldiers or priests, but by time itself. He sat upon the floor once more, setting down his torch until the flame grew low. The darkness thickened. His eyes closed. And slowly, the chamber changed. Not in stone, but in vision. He saw the shafts above glow with light, as though stars themselves had bent down to peer inside. Orion's belt shimmered. Sirius blazed. The Milky Way stretched across the sky, mirrored within the pyramid's walls. And then, voices. Soft, chanting, in a language older than the sands. Not threatening, not harsh, but soothing, like the tide of the Nile. The voices told a story, not in words he understood, but in feeling. A story of a king who sought eternity, and of builders who shaped mountains into mirrors of heaven. A story of stars, of journeys beyond death, of souls climbing stairways of light. The chamber pulsed with it. The walls themselves seemed to breathe. Kareem lay down upon the stone floor, the hum of the pyramid lulling him like a cradle. The air wrapped him in a weightless calm. His heart slowed. His thoughts softened. The pyramid was not guiding him to knowledge. Not yet. It was guiding him to stillness. And in that stillness, his body drifted.
The desert, the camels, the soldiers, even the torchlight, all faded away. Only the stars remained, only the gentle rhythm of stone and silence. The silence of the Queen's chamber held Karim for a long while. The faint breath of air still whispered through the shafts, as if stars themselves exhaled into the stone. He could have stayed there forever, wrapped in the soft hum of eternity. But the priest's words tugged at his memory. At the heart of the pyramid, truth sleeps. So Karim rose. He touched the cool wall once more, feeling its ancient pulse, and lifted his torch. The flame flickered, weak now, but enough to guide him. He retraced his steps into the grand gallery. The towering passage stretched upward, endless, its silence echoing louder with every step. His own breath seemed to thunder in the stillness, his footsteps like drums. Higher and higher he climbed until he reached the narrow final passage, a low corridor, rougher than the ones before, forcing him to bend, crawl, press his body through stone. His hands slid over polished granite, colder here, as though untouched by the warmth of the desert above. And then, the stone opened.
A chamber, vast and solemn, lay before him. The king's chamber. Its walls rose smooth and perfect, carved from massive blocks of red granite, hauled from Aswan, hundreds of miles away. The ceiling loomed heavy with granite beams stacked like layers of a mountain. The air was still, deep, unbroken, yet charged with a resonance he felt in his bones. At the center rested a single object, a granite box. Empty, silent, the sarcophagus. Karim stepped closer. His torchlight skimmed the edges of the box. It was vast, yet perfectly shaped, its surface smooth as though polished by the gods. He ran his hand across it, cool, hard, and humming faintly with a vibration too deep to be sound. This was no coffin. It was an instrument. Karim sat upon the stone floor beside it. He closed his eyes, letting the silence wash over him. And then he heard it, not with his ears, but within. Low tone, a resonance. The chamber itself seemed to breathe, the walls vibrating softly, as if the granite carried the echo of chants sung thousands of years ago. Every surface, every stone, every angle had been placed with precision to capture a sound not of this earth. His chest rose and fell with the rhythm. His heartbeat slowed, then matched the hidden tone. He leaned back against the sarcophagus. The vibration spread through him, not jarring, not loud, but deep, like a mother's lullaby sung in stone. And slowly, the chamber began to change. The torchlight dimmed, though the flame still burned. The air thickened into a golden glow. Symbols upon the walls stirred. Faint carvings, now alive. The falcon spread its wings. The lotus opened its petals. The eye of Ra blinked, radiant. Karim was no longer sitting in darkness. He was within light. The shafts above, angled to Orion and Sirius, flared with beams of starlight pouring into the chamber. The stars themselves entered,
painting the granite with shimmering paths. The sarcophagus glowed, not with fire, not with gold, but with stillness, a power too vast for words. And then he was not alone. Figures stood around him, not soldiers, not workers, not men of flesh and blood, shadows of priests, tall and robed, eyes like pools of night. They did not move, yet their presence filled the room. One raised a hand, and Kareem understood, though no words were spoken. This is the chamber where kings did not die. It is where they were reborn. The granite box was no coffin. It was a vessel, a place where breath, sound, and spirit merged, a tuning fork of the soul, meant to lift the pharaoh's essence from earth to stars.
Kareem lowered himself beside it, lying flat upon the cool floor. The vibration deepened, surrounding him. His eyelids fluttered. His breath slowed, soft and rhythmic, like waves upon the Nile. And in that rhythm, visions came. He saw the Nile, glowing silver under a full moon. He saw boats of light carrying souls across the river to fields that stretched forever green. He saw Osiris upon his throne, holding the crooked flail, waiting to weigh hearts against a feather. He saw pyramids not as tombs, but as beacons, star maps, stairways, a bridge between dust and eternity. His own body grew lighter. The hardness of the stone beneath him dissolved. He felt weightless, as though the sarcophagus were lifting him upward. His chest no longer rose and fell. It floated. His thoughts thinned into threads of light. The priest's shadows chanted, the chamber pulsed, the stars leaned closer. And Kareem drifted, not into fear, not into death, but into sleep, the deepest sleep, the kind from which one awoke not weaker, but renewed. The king's chamber held him. The sarcophagus hummed, the stars whispered. Time itself folded inward, slow and endless. And Kareem, the dreamer of pyramids, surrendered at last to the eternal cradle of stone and silence.
The chamber grew quieter still. The hum softened. The stars above dimmed. The priestly shadows dissolved like mist at dawn. And Kareem simply lay there, breathing, floating. His body, once heavy from the climb, no longer seemed his own. The cool granite beneath him became weightless, a raft on a slow, endless river. He felt the pulse of the pyramid itself, slow, steady, timeless, like the heartbeat of the desert, like the breath of eternity. For a long while he did not move. He did not need to. The silence was a story in itself. Then he drifted. Not walking, not climbing, drifting, as if sleep had finally taken him. But it was a sleep that carried visions. He saw sand dunes stretching forever, but the grains glimmered like stars. He saw the Nile, wide and luminous, flowing not with water, but with silver light. Boats drifted upon it, their sails catching winds from another world. He saw the pharaohs, not as mummies, not as stone statues, but as radiant beings walking among constellations. Their crowns shimmered with gold dust. Their voices were music itself, carried on winds no ear could hear. And he saw the pyramid, not the stone before him, but another pyramid, a pyramid of light, rising beyond the desert, beyond the sky, into the heart of the heavens. Each stone, a star. Each angle, a path. Each chamber, a doorway. Kareem's spirit moved upward along it, slowly, gently, with no effort, as though the stars were pulling him home. Higher, higher, until even time seemed to pause. The air was cool, the silence infinite, his breath soft as a feather. The voices of the priests returned, softer now, like echoes remembered from a dream. The pyramid is not an ending. It is a cradle. It holds the soul not in death, but in rebirth. The words faded, and Kareem felt no fear, no urgency, only peace. The stars dimmed further. The river grew still. Even the hum of the sarcophagus slowed, becoming long waves of sound, the kind that lull, the kind that soothe. His eyes grew heavier. The torchlight flickered out, but he no longer needed it. A softer glow filled the chamber, not from fire, not from stars, but from within. And then, even that light dissolved. All that remained was breath and silence. Kareem's final thought floated gently, like a leaf on water, that the secrets of the pyramids were never written in stone. They were written in sleep, in stillness, in the eternal dream that every soul carries when it drifts from one world to the next. His breath slowed once more. The chamber, the pyramid, the desert, the stars, all folded into the same quiet cradle. And Kareem slept, peacefully, endlessly. As the last echoes of Kareem's journey fade, you too can allow yourself to rest. Let the weight of the day slip away, like sand carried off by the desert wind. There is nothing left to do, nowhere left to climb, no mysteries you must solve tonight. All that matters is this moment, your body sinking deeper into stillness, your breath steady, soft, unhurried. The pyramids have kept their secrets for thousands of years, but tonight you have touched their silence. You have walked among their shadows, and now you can let those shadows guide you into your own dreams. Close your eyes more deeply. Let the warmth of the stars above and the quiet hum of the stones below hold you. There is peace here. There is rest here. And all you need to do is drift. Breathe in once more. Breathe out slowly and allow yourself to surrender. Good night.